guys, how's it going? I'm Good 890 with you guys. First off, thanks for checking out the channel. As always, feel free to like, share, subscribe, and take a look at some other videos. So up until this point, if you've been a subscriber of the channel, typically what we talk about on this channel is guns and gun-related gear. However, moving forward, that's kind of going to change, all starting with this video. I still love guns. I still am going to do videos on guns. However, as a reviewer, especially somebody that's not as mainstream as, say, military arms stream or something like that, I do this mainly for a hobby, to share my information, share my views, stuff like that, something fun to do, and you know, get your intake, or get your input, excuse me, on everything. You know, you guys as viewers and commenters down below, you guys kind of influence me in some ways too, as well as other YouTubers. I really enjoy watching YouTube videos as far as like big mainstream guys, but I really more enjoy watching the littler guys, the guys that have a few thousand subscribers or 20,000 or less subscribers or so around there, because, you know, typically they're not too influenced by third parties or something like that, and companies trying to get you to say what they want. But with all that being said, let's kind of move on. Today what we are going to be talking about is a chainsaw. So our first video, different than guns, is chainsaws. What's better than a gun? A chainsaw. If I couldn't take a gun into a fight, I'd take a chainsaw, sure. But anyways, with all that being said, this is the Stihl MS261. This is a pro saw. This is a pretty expensive saw. That's the reason I'm doing a review on it. This is just expensive, if not more expensive than some guns, you know. About a $600 saw, as I said. This saw, I have a 20-inch bar on it right now. You can get it with a 16, up to a 20, a 16, 18, or a 20. I'm sure you could throw some other stuff on there if you wanted to. 20-inch bar, is it too much for this saw? No, not really. Once we get into the horsepower and everything like that, and the power to weight ratio, this saw is phenomenal. A lot of people are going to be running 18-inch bars on it. I'm running a 20 on it just simply because it works for me. It gives me that little added versatility. I'm only running one saw. If I was running two saws, say I had like a 362 or a 462 or something, I probably would be running an 18 on this saw. But being that this is pretty much my main saw, I decided to get the 20 on it. And like I said, it has plenty enough power, in my opinion, to run the 20-inch bar. So, a little background on myself as far as chainsaws and my knowledge on them. So I'm not a professional tree cutter or logger or anything like that. I grew up on a dairy farm in southwestern Pennsylvania. To think about it for a minute, I'm going to give you guys bad information. So I grew up in southwestern Pennsylvania on a dairy farm, and my dad had an outdoor wood burner. So we always cut firewood in the summer and sometimes in the winter to be able to run his outdoor wood burner, so that way we could heat the house and everything like that. So I've been running chainsaws ever since I was a kid, you know. And my dad had a bunch of Stihls. He did have a few other chainsaws. I believe there was a Makagala, or however you pronounce it. He also had a Husqvarna, but the majority of his saws, his main saws, were all Stihl saws. Basically, my favorite saw that he ever had was the 260, and that's why I decided to go with this 261. That's one of the main reasons. The 261 that you see here, the key advantages to it and why I chose it is because of the weight. So this is, like I said, a pro grade saw. So your differences are your build quality. A lot of the parts on this are made out of magnesium that on your homeowner, farm, and ranch style saws, they're going to be made out of plastic. For example, your actual framework and your front here on the saw is magnesium. On your farm and ranch saws, it's going to be plastic, as well as your side guard here. This is magnesium. You have captive bar nuts, which really comes in handy when you got to change a chain or flip your bar over or something out in the field. You don't want to drop those nuts. They're pretty easy to lose. Being that they're captive, it gives you almost no chance to lose them. You still could, anything's possible, right? But there's a lot of pros to this saw. Now, just looking at the number 261, you might say, well, the farm and ranch saw, the 271 and the 291, those are bigger saws. Not really. So if you look at the CCs, this is 50.2 CCs, which is the same exact CCs as your 271 farm boss. Bigger number, you would think it means more power. However, that is not exactly true. So this, let me quote your little manual here to make sure I'm right. So your 261 has 3.0 kW, kilowatts of power, I guess. Your 271 has 2.6, and your 291 has 2.8. So you have 0.2 more kilowatts of power with your 261 versus your 291, and 0.4 more kilowatts of power versus your 271. So your 271 and your 291 are going to be bigger saws as far as the number, and they're also going to be heavier saws. However, this actually has more power than it. And if you compare the CCs, like I said, it's 50.2 on the 261, 50.2 on the 271, and whenever you get into the 291, you're talking 55.5 cc's. So the 291 has more cc's, more weight, but it's actually less powerful than this as far as kilowatts of power. And to give you actual weight numbers, let me make sure where the weight is on these. So your 261, the power head itself, weighs 10.8 pounds. If you look at your 271, it's 12.3. And if you look at your 291, it is 12.3 as well. So 12.3 versus 10.8. So this is definitely a lighter saw, about 2 pounds lighter of a saw. And on something that you're going to be holding, something that's going to be vibrating, something that you're going to be using for hours on end, 2 pounds really does start to make a difference. And you can definitely feel it with this. So the 261 is kind of known to have a great power to weight ratio. I don't get too crazy into that because, like I said, I'm not a professional tree cutter. It doesn't really matter to me a whole lot. However, just know that this is a light saw and also a super powerful saw for the weight. The power to weight ratio is good. So moving forward, kind of showing you this saw. So like I said, you got magnesium here in the front, your side plates magnesium, captive bar nuts. You're going to have obviously your chain brake, 20-inch bar. Like I said, this is just what came on it. You're going to have a decompression valve right here. So what that rate basically does is releases the compression in the engine. So that way it's easier to start. Do you need a decompression valve? Not necessarily. This thing is fairly easy to pull. However, it makes it easier. If you've ever had a chainsaw or a weed eater from Stihl that has their easy start, like for example, I have an FS56 RC over here, and it has the easy start from Stihl. It's pretty easy to pull to start it, you know. But with the decompression valve, it's actually easier to pull than that. So it really comes in handy. I mean, it's not a big deal to pull this thing without the decompression valve. However, with the decompression valve, it just makes it easier to pull. You know, you're not, you're just, it's a general easy pull. You're not going to strain yourself too much. So that's kind of nice. A key way to tell if a Stihl saw is a pro saw is basically this line here. This is an easy giveaway. Your pro saws for the lower end model, or for the smaller models, you have your 241, your 261, your 362, I believe. Yeah, 362 and your 462. As well as they've made pro saws for years, and there's a bunch of different other models out there. However, those are the current models. Your 241, 261, 362, 462, and then they go up from there. And I'm not too familiar with the super big saws because I have no use for one of those super big saws. You know, a 362 or maybe a 462 might be an option. If I wanted a bigger saw, I'd probably go with the 462. I think the new 462 has the same weight as the 362, but you're getting a little more power. So I might go 462 over 362, but I wouldn't go no bigger than a 462 unless it was a lighter saw than that. I really have no need for anything bigger than a 20-inch bar, maybe a 25 or 26 or whatever they come in. But to be honest with you, a 20-inch bar is kind of more than enough for what I need. It does everything I need to do. It'll chop up every tree that I'm going to come across. And if it doesn't chop it in one cut, I can simply jump to the other side and do it. 20-inch bar, you figure you get roughly 18 inches of actual cutting space. Give yourself some wiggle room. 18 times 2 is what? 20 to 36. So you got 36 inches of being able to cut a tree if you jump to both sides. And that's giving yourself a pretty realistic expectation. So a 36-inch tree, a 3-foot tree, that's pretty big. I'm not going to get into anything really bigger than that around here. So that's why the 261 is a great saw for me. Now, like I said, I'm not too knowledgeable whenever it comes to the Husky saws. I've used Husqvarna saws before, and they're pretty good chainsaws. My buddy, his dad and him swear by the Husqvarna saws. However, like I said, I'm not a saw expert. I don't know a lot about them. I chose the Stihl simply because that's what I'm used to. That's what my family's used for years. And also I have a Stihl dealer, a pretty good Stihl dealer that's about 10 minutes from my house. My closest Husqvarna dealer is probably about 20-25 minutes away. So it was kind of a no-brainer for me to go with a Stihl. Plus I have other Stihl equipment, weed eaters, blowers, stuff like that, which I'm sure in the future we'll go over. So like I said, my first impressions and kind of first review of the 261 is pretty good. One thing I guess I should hit on here is they have the 261 and the 261 CM. On the saw, you only see a C, but in the owner's manual and stuff, it's going to say 261 CM. So basically what the CM saws are is Stihl's M-tronic saws. Essentially what they do is they have a computer system inside of some sort, and it'll basically auto adjust your carburetor. Now there's some pros and cons to that. If you're somebody like me who's out in the woods cutting, and say I'm out on my side-by-side and I come across a tree, I gotta cut the tree down, say I accidentally bump the ground or something, I get a dull chain. Well, hey, I gotta get this tree out of my way, so I'm gonna continue cutting. Now, if you do that with an M-tronic saw, the saw is gonna overcompensate for a dull chain, and there are examples both with Husqvarna system and Stihl system, because they both offer the electronic saws, that the computer system can overcompensate and it can actually blow up your saw. Now that's kind of an extreme example, however, it's just something to be cognizant of with those saws. The starting procedure is a little bit different. I did get to play with a 261C CM before I bought this one. However, I decided to go basic. I don't need no frills, no thrills. For what I'm using it for, the regular 261 is plenty enough. I did stumble across a gentleman that had both of them, and he said he liked his regular 261 better. He felt like it cut better, he could adjust it, fine-tune it a little bit better than the electronics, at least he thought. So that's one man's opinion. Like this whole video, it's one man's opinion. Take it for what it's worth. If you guys got any questions about this saw or anything else that you see on the channel, or have some recommendations for some stuff that you want me to do videos on, feel free to post those in the comment section down below. Guys, I greatly appreciate all the support that's been coming into the channel. You guys are awesome. Like I said, I'm not paid, I'm not sponsored, I've never got anything free for doing any videos on this channel. However, all I ask for is that if you enjoy the video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you aren't already subscribed, and tell your friends about my videos, guys. Greatly appreciate it. God bless. See you guys again.